Tales from the Cosmic Horror. The stars are right once again, and the great old ones allow us to talk about 30 plus minutes. H.P. Lovecraft, the horror writer who's a genre unto himself. I'm your cosmic host, Mark Griffin, executive of Lovecraft Estate on Yawguth, joined in by two from the material world, David Guffey, a professor at Mispatonic University, and Richard Wilson, who is wondering if he should see a doctor about this gangrene that's been consuming most of his body. For today's episode, our guest is Larry Underwood, aka a horror movie host, Dr. Gangrene. Welcome to our program.
Hey, thank you. Nice to meet you.
I understand as a child that you were asked what you wanted to be as you grow up, and you gave a very interesting answer to that.
Well, I guess it was probably Sir Cecil Creep is what is the answer that you probably saw that I answered. When I was a kid, he was our local host. He was the big guy, and yeah, I mean, my first thing I wanted to be was an astronaut. That was number one. But then once I realized, okay, no, this isn't happening. I think a TV horror host was second.
It's a good fallback.
Yeah. You can't be an astronaut. You can be a horror movie host.
Yeah, be a late night ghoul. One of the two.
Yeah.
The same thing, right?
Now, were your friends? They did think that was a cool idea. They want to change their answer and want to be like, as like a horror movie host as well.
So yeah, so what you're oh yeah, I know what you're this was in high school. They were asking us where we thought we'd be in 10 years. And it was for the yearbook. They said, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And I was gonna say hosting a movie like Sir Cecil Creeps. I didn't know the term horror host back then, but that was gonna be my answer. But my buddy James Slagle, who was sitting right next to me, said, oh man, you can't say that. That's nerdy. You'll never get any chicks. You got to say something cool. I said, I don't know anything cool. So he gave me the answer. And what I wrote was, I don't even know what I'm doing tonight. So the heck if I know. Yeah, real cool. Got to be aloof.
Yeah, that's a typical teen response there.
Yep.
And so were you being sincere when you said that, or just being joking, or did you actually work towards becoming like a horror movie host or Sir Cecil?
That was one of the things that I thought about at that moment was, what would be cool is a show like that. It took me another 20 years before I would actually pursue it. In the 80s, I did go to a meeting at the local cable access station. They had just started and they were having meetings about to drum up membership, and they were telling us about how you go about checking out cameras and what the regulations of doing a TV show and all that were. But I was not anywhere near ready yet. I mean, my head was in the clouds still. I was a rambunctious 20-something-year-old, chasing girls, drinking beer, having fun, trying to find myself in college, whatever. I was way too all over the place to ever be focused enough to sit down and do a TV show. And if I had, it wouldn't have lasted very long, I can assure you, at that point in my life. Circle back to it in the 1990s. It was in 1999 is when I started the TV show after writing and drawing and self-publishing comic books after college. In 1999 is when I started the show because I had a friend that had a cable access TV show, and I was asking him how it worked because, again, I kind of had that cable access interest back in the 80s. I was like, how long do you shoot? What does a typical shoot look like? Where do you shoot? What kind of equipment do you use? Where do you edit? With all these technical questions. And he finally just said, Larry, I think you should do this. I think you'd be good at it. And I said, I don't know, man. I don't know. And it was a friend of mine that lived right up, Jack Wood, that lived when we moved to Hendersonville, my wife and I at the time, and I, we wound up about 2 blocks down the road from Jack Wood, who had a cable access TV show in Hendersonville called The Static Show. And he was the one that talked me into kind of trying it. And my buddy Chuck Angel and I, who had worked on comics together, started this endeavor. Chuck said, I figured it would last a few episodes and we'd be done. But here I am 24 years later, still doing it.
That was awesome. Quite a feat there.
Yeah, it's fun. It's, I have an art degree. That was my passion early in life. Was I thought I wanted to be, after an astronaut, after a failed astronaut, I thought I wanted to be an artist, right? So and I did want to be an artist, and I went to school, graduated with an art degree. Would I wanted to go into comic books. That was my really early love. And so Chuck and I started this company, self-publishing. We did a little bit of freelance work, but it was mostly self-publishing and doing our own books. And we put a handful of them out, and that was a lot of fun. But I look at horror hosting like another creative endeavor, and that is what feeds my happiness, keeps me content. I have to be creating something.
Right.
And so if it's not art, it's writing. And if it's not, which is what I turned to immediately after starting the comic books, I realized, I think I'm better on the other side of this. I don't think art is actually it. I think I'm actually a better writer than an artist. And then after we did all that, we started this show, and I was like, I have realized over time that that's what this is. This is another creative outlet. It's another way for me to channel that creativity and create these shows. And that's what keeps me going,
So what is it about, I guess, like, being in front of a camera that you get that you don't get like doing art or writing?
There is a performance side of things there. That's an interesting question, because in school I never took drama classes or acted, but I did do some public speaking, and I was on the debate club, and I did enjoy getting up and doing that. So there is a certain attraction to that. I just think it's another creative outlet. It's expressing that creative side. That's all I know to say. Not exactly sure. Not exactly 100% sure. I had to think that. I had to think about that one. What it is about being in front of the camera specifically that is satisfying, but it does definitely scratch that itch. I like to perform, like to get up in front of people. Just this last weekend, we had the Betty Page memorial, where they did the plaque for Betty, which my buddy Ben Wilkinson was the driving force behind that. He got all that going, and Ben's done some work on my show with me. Season 1, he was the hands coming through the bar. My assistant Gunther, that was him. And he's written the music for my show, the theme song, and some of the background music you hear. That's all Ben. And the after party, I hosted the after party, which was at East Side Bowl in Nashville. So again, it was being up in public, being in front of people. It's fun. It's just a lot of fun.
So how did you come up with the name Dr. Gangrene?
That was complete play on words. So in 1999, the show ER was really popular, and the character Dr. Green is played by Anthony Edwards. And I work in a hospital, and I was getting stopped constantly, at least once a week, a couple times a week sometimes, and told, you look like that guy from ER, especially if I happen to be wearing scrubs. Forget it. It was always going to happen. So Dr. Gangrene is sort of a play on words for Dr. Green.
Nice.
And I look at him like kind of a twisted medical professional. So it's a twist of that medical name.
Did you use him as a role model, like for like when you're like on the show and all that, or
not so much? Although I can't help but with the appearance looking like him. But yeah, that's definitely where the name came from. And so, I had never watched or heard that there was a Professor Gangrene on the movie Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Oh.
I didn't find that out till 10, 15 years later. Someone said, "Oh, you ripped that off from Tomatoes." I went, "What are you talking about?"
Totally different. Professor versus
Professor. Yeah, Professor,
not
doctor. Yeah, completely different people.
Come on now.
Yeah, it's like. So what was the first episode like? What was the production value?
Oh, it was terrible. It's on YouTube. It's I go back and look at it sometimes because I had no idea what exactly we were doing. The lighting is terrible. The camera is shot. Of course, we were shooting on. I had a VHS-C camera at the time, so it's the little tapes, and so we were shooting on VHS. We were editing on two VCRs. Just hit play and hit stop and do it that way. And my delivery, I had no idea what I was kind of trying to do a voice, kind of not trying to do a voice. And I had this prosthetic scar on one side of my face that I would spirit gum on every time we were shooting. And boy, that got old. After about a half a season to a season, I wrote that out. I was like, enough of this.
We got healed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we had a whole episode written about how I used, I don't know, zombie blood or something to get rid of it. And we even had an episode, that same episode explained where the scars came from as well. It turns out that Dr. Gangrene got the scars because he went through the drive-through at McDonald's and the hot coffee spilled on his face when they hit a bump.
Right.
Yep.
Topical.
I guess I was in reference to the woman who spilled coffee on her lap at that time period.
Which was right around that time, of course. So.
And so what was the first movie you played?
My first movie was a short film that my friend Michael Drabicki, who I worked with at the hospital, it's a short film that he made. It's called Lie Still. It's kind of a film noir thing. And that's the first one we showed. The first actual movie we showed, Chiller Cinema, was the show that I did. It was a half-hour TV show. And Halloween that first year, they let me show an hour and a half. So I showed White Zombie with Bela Lugosi. So that's a trivia question. That the first movie Dr. Gangrene ever hosted would be White Zombie.
So how did you condense that down to, you said an hour and a half?
Hour and a half. So yeah, it fit.
Yeah, so not too bad.
No.
And all that. And so did you pick that movie, or was that movie just available, and just say?
Oh, I picked it because it's public domain and one of the ones that I knew I could show, and it's a good movie, And
is there any reason why you picked that one as your first one? Was it just?
I probably just felt like showing it. It had Bela, so it's got one of the big stars, and it's so atmospheric. It's a great first movie. Really, I mean, I've shown it a couple times. I need to show it on my new program. I haven't shown it on the sanitarium yet, but it's a classic.
So I'm curious, why some people who host horror movies don't dress up as any character at all? Why did you decide to become a character?
Probably because Sir Cecil Creek did. That's probably why. I thought about, when I decided to do this show, I thought about it for a while, what kind of character I would want to do. And really, the reason I landed on a mad scientist was because I work at a hospital and I know a lot of research doctors, and some of them gave me lab equipment. When I told them what I was up to, it was like, oh, here's a big beaker, you can have this. And so I was gathering this stuff and it just sort of made sense. And it sort of looked right when I got a lab coat and put it on. I was like, oh yeah, I like this look. That'll work. It wasn't anything in particular sciencey that made me go that way. It was just
happy accidents.
It's one of those archetypes that you can't go wrong with. Vampire, ghoul, mad scientist. It's
so. What is? I guess going to a little bit about Sir Cecil Creek. Explain him a little bit. People may not know who he is.
He was a horror host in the Nashville area. Started in 1971. The show ended in 1973. It was on WSMV, which was WSM TV at the time. It was on Saturday nights at 10:30. He was a hunchback ghoul who hosted movies from his crypt located deep below Channel 4 studios, supposedly, played by a guy named Russ McCown, and was wildly popular in the Nashville area, although I didn't get to actually stay up and watch it. My parents, my mom at the time, we were living at my grandmom's house, and they're all super, we're super strict and religious. And probably wouldn't have let me stay up that late to watch it anyway, but I saw the promos, and he later did some afternoon shows, and I'm sure I probably got to see those. But of course, I would have been aware of him because all the kids would have been talking about him at school. I would have seen the commercials on TV. He had a creature cooler named after him. There was, advertisements and everything for him. So, I mean, he was a big deal in Nashville at the time. And he
I've
came
heard
back.
Pat Sajak did some writing for that show.
Pat Sajak did some of the scripts for sure. And in the 80s, he came back as the Phantom of the Opry on TNN, the Nashville network, which later became Spike TV over at Opryland. So over at Gaylord is where they broadcast from. So that was a national program.
Now I understand you have a scout badge of him.
I do. I got to meet him at some point. I don't have a lot of memories. I kind of have a vague memory of standing in front of him, but I don't know if I made this up in my mind or not. And maybe I have, but I sort of remember standing in front of him and wanting to tell him that I want to do what you do. Maybe that's completely made up in my head. It totally could be, but I have this vague memory. But I do have the patch. My brother and I both got one. My mom sewed it on this blue jean jacket with a whole all the badges that we had gotten from Scouts, and she sewed it on the jacket. And so, year and a half after I started the show, I pulled that off and sewed it on my lab coat as a tribute to Sir Cecil Creek.
Now, was that an actual badge from the Scouts you could put on, your uniform and all that? And
it was a patch, an embroidered patch, and it didn't go on your uniform, but you could put it on any. There's just something you earn those for different things. Like I've got some that say Apollo 12 and stuff, and different events, all the events they would give out patches for.
it just seemed like such an odd one to have, for Boy Scouts. And just
yeah, it's a whole campaign he did with the Scouts, something cool that he worked out because he liked kids and he liked doing that kind of thing. So I think it's pretty neat.
But he wasn't the only one. There was another, I guess, horror movie host before him.
There was Dr. Lucifer was his name, played by Ken Bramming. And he was on in the late 50s and into the 60s. And the two of them were friends, actually, and wound up working together at Channel 4.
And, he looked very different from Sir Cecil.
He did. He wore tuxedo, had an eye patch, smoked a cigarette all the time, had this deep voice. And
he looked like a James Bond villain.
Yeah. Cool stuff.
And then I'm trying to remember the other ones. Are there any surviving footage of Dr. Lucifer? Like any videos?
The only thing that exists is the opening and closing credits, because those were shot on film. Everything else, back in those days, there wasn't videotape. So the only way one would have survived is if someone had a film camera and pointed it at the TV and made a kinescope of it. That's the only way, like the Vampira showed a little bit of existing footage from that is kinescopes. And unfortunately, there is none. But the opening and closing credits, they took that footage recently. It's about 5 or 6 years ago now. And they recreated an episode of his show. They wrapped those around a movie. I'm trying to think. It might have been King of the Zombies, or It'll Come to Me. They took one of the old public domain movies. Maybe it's The Brain That Wouldn't Die, and they wrapped his opening and closing credit around it and ran it on the air. On that one of the anniversaries, 50th or something of his show.
Okay,
pretty cool.
And some of the others I've noticed, it seems like Nashville has quite a number of horror movie hosts. That we're known for country music, but it seems also have horror movie hosts as well. The Council of Five, and Humphrey the Hunchback.
Yeah. There's been a few of them, and it's just one of those things. A lot of the big cities have had their regional hosts, and they all have their certain flavor. And Nashville's that way. It seems like, you know, there's been hosts before me, and I'm happy to carry that tradition forward. Something that I take a lot of pride in, the fact that I've been able to pick up that mantle and run with it, you know.
Now, when you were first doing this, you were paying to have it done, weren't you?
Not at first. At first, I was on cable access, and that's where the show really got its footing and started up in 1999. And then about 2002, I decided to try my hand at putting it on late night. So I called, it was actually UPN at first, and I called them and said, hey, could I get a late night spot? And he said, yeah, I'll sell you late night television early in the morning. And it was, I can't remember, $100 a week or something. It was really low, and I got sponsors to pay it. And I did that for a while. But it just got to be one of those things where, you know, when you have to round up money from, the only thing worse than going out and asking for money from sponsors is going to collect money from sponsors. So it just got to be one of those things where it's just like, oh, I hate this. I just stopped after a while. And then wound up moving the show over to the WB, which became the CW during the course of the run. So I had started on UPN and then moved it over to CW and ran it there changed the show to creature feature, like Sir Cecil, and had my own creature feature show on there during the latter half of the 2000s.
And I think like one of the first movies you reviewed for the creature feature was Bruiser.
That was one of the earliest. The very first one was Dreamscape. No, yes, Dreamscape first. Let me think about this for a second. Episode 1 was, I'm looking at my tapes over here. Dreamscape, I think, was the first one. And then I think Bruiser was one of the second or third ones that I showed. They had a package of films at the station that they gave me to run. So they would send me each month a list of the movies they had that month, and I'd go through and see if there's any horror titles. Like, I want to run that one and that one and that one. Pretty cool that got to do that. And eventually they dropped that package of films, which about 2010, it really was a bummer because then took my content away.
So what'd you do then?
Well, along with that, the program director told me that there was new FCC rules that your show could not have any repeat value if it's not closed captioned. Everything had to be closed captioned. If it's not closed captioned, there's an exception as long as it doesn't have any repeat value. Well, I didn't have the money to close caption it at that point, and I didn't really have the means to do it at that point either. Nowadays, it's pretty easy. You can close caption things with your editing software pretty easily, but back then in 2010 you couldn't. So I went back to a half-hour format. I changed the name of the show to Dr. Gangrene Presents, and I got all these old TV shows like One Step Beyond and Boris Karloff's The Veil. And I would take the movie portion of it, pull out the host bits, and put my own host bits in. And we did that, but remember, we couldn't do any reruns, so we did that for 50-something episodes, and I was just burnt out. And I said, you know, I think we're done, man. I don't think I want to keep doing this at this point. So we gave it a rest at that point.
And then you came back.
And then we came back. Came back for the 20th anniversary of the show in 2019. Called up my program director from the WB or the CW and said, you know, how would you feel about putting the show back on for the anniversary? He said, yep, let's get the band back together. Let's do it. So we put 4 episodes on that fall and had a good time doing it. That's the ones that Ben played the monster in, I told you about earlier. And then come January, my buddy Cameron, who had been a director, Cameron McCaslin, had been a director on a lot of those creature feature shows, had since become the I guess I don't know what his title is, program director over at the cable access station where I used to have the show on originally. And he said, "Hey, listen, we've got an opening on Saturday nights." And I said, "Well, what do you think about putting my show on?" And he said, "Yeah, we could do that." So came back full circle, back where I started. We're on every Saturday night now at 9 o'clock on the Nashville's NECAT station.
You're also streaming too.
Streaming, although at the moment it's streaming through NECAT, which at the moment is broken, which I get I get emails about every week. Hey, when are they going to fix this? NECAT's Roku's broken, but they have a Roku channel that works as a live stream, just live streams their program. As I mentioned, it's down. They're supposed to be. It's a Comcast thing. They upgraded their, I don't know, their software or something, and now the Roku stream's not working, so they're trying to get it back. Hopefully that'll be resolved soon. But I also put them on my website each week, a Vimeo link. I post it there and put the link on my website so people can watch it on my website. Just go there and click it. So yeah, I'm still streaming there regardless.
So someone broke your kneecap? Is that what you're saying?
Broke my kneecap. That's it. Need a doctor.
Yeah, I couldn't resist that. Sorry. I guess you don't just do movies. You also done some commercials as well. You have like some old vintage commercials that you run.
Fake commercials in and the vintage commercials as well. We'll usually slip in a fake commercial. Not every episode, but just about, just because
like
it's fun.
Awful House.
The Awful House. Exactly. Make up a fake sponsor, put him at the beginning of the episode, and it gives me filler content. It's entertaining. People really seem to like it. I get a lot of comments about the fake commercials.
There was I guess it was a PSA that you ran at one time, and it's probably the one program that stuck with me the most. It was the one called One Got Fat, about bicycle safety. And it is such a surreal, I guess, like safety video.
Yes, that's it's going back to the Chiller Cinema days. I'm thinking about rerunning that one again because we're going to show the movie The Hitchhiker, which I don't know if you've seen that, but it's film noir directed by Ida Lupino. It's a great movie. I like slipping some film noirs in every once in a while. It's just sort of a cool curveball that sort of fits the horror genre. It's got those dark elements to it, but it's unique and a little different, something that people haven't seen necessarily. But it's a little short. And so I was thinking about what we could do to pad it out. And I was thinking, One Got Fat. That might be perfect. Yeah. Hitchhiker, cars, they're riding a bicycle, and they're in danger too. And it all kind of plays together.
Yeah. So where do you find that footage? I mean, is it just something you just come across, in all the TV accesses you have, or?
There's a wonderful website called archive.org that's full of public domain films like that.
So you're finding a lot of that stuff on there?
Stuff like One Got Fat for sure. Yeah. The movies, I'm constantly on the search for quality public domain prints. So that's a never ending search. I've got stacks and stacks of them sitting around all over. So how deep do you go? Like, do you have like VHS copies that you find and like use them, or are they all like somehow digital? Well, I would prefer to have a digital copy if it's cleaned up and I'll go for the best quality print I can get that's I can be assured is public domain. So whether that be a print that I license from one of these companies, sometimes I'll buy a copy from somebody, or whether it's a DVD that's got a real nice copy cleaner print on it. I've run stuff off VHS too, though. I've got tons of that. If that's the only place I can find it, I would run a VHS if I had to. Or, a lot of that stuff has been captured and is online somewhere, so Mike can lift that.
There's one movie at least that you've run 3 times, the giant Gila monster.
Yeah, I think I've shown that more times than any other movie. I've shown it in a 30-minute version cut down to 30 minutes, an hour version, an hour and a half, and a 2-hour version.
Wow.
What's it about that movie you guys should keep showing?
It's just got a charm to it. It's got a real charm to it. Giant monster. It's got 50s rock and roll, hot rods. It's fun. It's a short film, so on those longer versions, I have to add other short films in with it to pad it out, to that runtime.
And
But
I was kind of curious, why don't you just like replay an old episode? Why do you like play it and then like have a new a new opening and closing to it?
The quality of what I'm shooting now is so much higher because I'm shooting in HD, and it looks so different from those old Chiller Cinema episodes, which were again shot on VHS-C. So you're 480p versus 1080. It's just everything's crystal clear and clean, and I feel like I'm a better performer now. They're better written. They're certainly better edited. You just want to take another crack at it. Again, it's scratching that creative itch. I will tell you though, for the Gila Monster, I ran that just last month. It's funny that you should mention that one. And I took, for the opening of it and maybe one or two other segments, I did what you're talking about. I took some of the segments from the Creature Feature version of it when I ran it on Creature Feature, and I just took those and redid them again, word for word, same script, and they felt completely different. It's funny watching them side by side because the older episode, I had more energy. I was a little bit more, hyper with my delivery. There's no gray in my beard, and now here we are in 2023, a little gray in the beard, delivery's a little slower, the energy level's down a little bit, but there's a professionalism, I think, to the delivery. So I don't know, it's kind of a toss-up which one's better. There's just different. There's two different takes of the exact same material. So it was pretty interesting.
Did you write that parody of London Calling, by the way, that was on one of those? There's the bit in there where the guy comes in with the guitar and you guys, but he changed the lyrics so that it was about the movie.
Yes, I did write that.
That was really good. I like that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was the Creature Feature episode, and that was John Hudson playing the guitar. I had him playing a undead character named Gibson.
I went to high school with John.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay. Good old John. I saw him last weekend at the Betty Page Memorial.
Yeah, I saw him post some things about that. If you know John, you probably know Randy Fox. Do you know him?
I do.
Yeah. Yeah, we all went to high school together, so that's been a while.
In Kentucky.
Yep.
Yeah.
Small world.
Yeah.
It sure is.
Yeah. And there are a whole bunch of other type of horror movie hosts out there now. Svengoolie, is that you say his name? Svengoolie. Carlos Barloff. How do you say that?
Carlos Barloff.
Yes. So is there like these big rivalry between every one of y'all, or do y'all get along pretty well?
Not as far as I'm concerned. I know a lot of those guys and am friends with a lot of them. A lot of them I don't know. The newer hosts I haven't met at all. But there are some of those guys that are competitive with each other. But I've always said horror hosting is not a competition. That it's, as far as I'm concerned, the only person I'm concerned with is myself. Right. I try to outdo what I did before. So if I can do a show that's a better show than the show I did last year, that's a win for me. I don't care what Svengoolie or Carlos Borloff or any of the other hosts are doing. It's all I'm just worried about myself, but some of those guys aren't wired that way. Some of them are definitely more competitive, I guess, and they may be rival to one another. I don't know, but that's just not the way I look at it.
I can't see how that would work out unless you're like in competing markets. I don't know
Yeah, as far
how
as,
are you
you know,
competing or how are you,
Well,
we're
here's
gonna
the
go head to
thing.
head against each other.
Right, right. Well, some of them they get jealous of other people's fame, and the way I look at it is, the old saying, a rising tide lifts all boats.
right?
The fact that Svengoolie's got a national television show that's seen by everybody, or that Joe Bob Briggs has come back on Shutter and is this huge success, only makes people that much more curious about, well, I wonder who else is doing this. So it's really good for all of us.
Yeah.
And that's the truth of it.
Right. And you also did a little film short, which is one of the reasons why I have you on the show, Beast in the Cave, which was based on a short story by Lovecraft. How did that come about?
So Cameron McCaslin, who I mentioned earlier, and I have done a number of things together. We did a Dr. Gangrene short called The Dreadful Halloween Special. We shot a feature film a couple of years ago. And that short film was one that I approached Cameron with the idea. I had read it. I was reading some Lovecraft one day, and I read it, and I said, man, I think this would be really easy to do. All we need is, pretty much a cave and a couple other little locations. I think we could do this and do it pretty well. So I called Cameron up, shot him the idea. He said, yeah, I'll write it up. Well, let's take a look. And so I wrote the script based on Lovecraft's story, and got Chuck Angel, my first director, involved. He's great at makeup. Friend of Cameron's named Joey played the monster, and Chuck did the makeup for him. And Chuck found a cave. He knew of a cave that we could get pretty easy access to pretty easy. And so we just spent a day shooting that, and did it all in one day, the cave parts. And then Cameron went back and shot the wraparound sections of the guy writing. And that's when, I can't remember Wynn's last name right off the bat, starts with R, who plays those parts. But yeah, I mean, we just, I thought it was cool to do, and I mentioned this that day on the set. I said, guys, here we are, 97, I think it was 97 at the time, 97 years after this kid writes this story, a group of people are making a film version of this. I mean, how fan-fucking-tastic is that? 97 years later, I mean, we should all be so lucky to have the work that we do so revered that almost 100 years later, somebody says, I'm going to adapt that. That's pretty special.
And that was one of his first stories that he wrote. That's kind of considered one of his more like weird fiction tales.
Yeah, it's kind of a juvenile tale, but it's just real simple. Guy goes in cave and there's a thing in there, and he's scared to death of it in the dark. And so
it was modeled after Mammoth Cave, and he must have done a really good job of like describing the cave in there, because some of the people at Mammoth Cave were wondering if Lovecraft actually visited Mammoth Cave.
Very, very possible.
Yeah,
very possible.
He never went there. He must have got like some type of map book and just used that.
Okay.
But he expressed interest in going there, but he never had a chance to.
Yeah.
And it won an award.
We did. We won a Rondo Award. Those guys back there, for best short film for that year.
Yeah. So good old Rondo. And you also do a program called Dr. Gangrene's Horror Hootenanny, or did?
Yeah, that's a yearly annual rock and roll Halloween party that we have in Nashville every year. We took 2 years off for COVID, but we're going to be back this year. And it's a big costume party. It's rock and roll. We have bands. I host the event. The Creeping Cruds always play. My buddy Gino, who heads the Cruds, is my co-organizer for this show. And this year is going to be held at a place called King's Entertainment, which is a bowling alley in just outside, right there at Cool Springs Galleria. It's going to be the first Saturday in October, which I think is the 5th, if I'm not mistaken. We've got a band from Canada called Forbidden Dimension that's coming down. great band, legendary band. I mean, they've been around a long time. Um, they're going to play a local band called the Phantoms of Saturn, and then the Cruds.
Some of my friends of mine were in a band that played for one of the horror hootenannies called the Code Names. I don't know if you remember them.
Yeah, yeah, I do.
And one of them had a Sir Cecil Pitt patch as well.
Very cool.
And
Another Kentucky connection there, I do believe.
Yeah.
I think they were friends with Randy, and I think that's where we got them involved.
I think some of the members were all lived in Nashville, and others lived in Kentucky, and so they're kind of they're a bi-state thing.
Yep.
And but Troy, who was one of the members of the band, he said you were really nice to them, and he's glad you're keeping the horror host thing alive, and because he says you know a lot about the history of horror.
Oh, cool. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, Troy. I got you fooled. No.
And so when you're doing your shows, do you have to do a lot of research? Do you know the stuff already, or how?
Oh no, I have to research everything. Dude, I've got the worst memory in the world. I swear, I can't. Some of these guys amaze me with their ability to just rattle off facts, and I could do a little bit of that. But as far as like an encyclopedic knowledge of all knowing and remembering I can't even remember movies we watched. My son will go to watch. Oh yeah, I'm gonna watch this movie. Let's watch this. We just watched that, Dad. Yeah, we just watched that. Remember? Okay.
Yeah.
Now I research everything, and I always try my best to get the facts right, which is so much easier nowadays than what the hosts in the old days. That's why none of the old guys. I've heard Joe Bob talk about this. None of the old guys ever talked about movie facts. They didn't have a way to.
Right.
That IMDb did not exist. There was no internet. They didn't have books of film history to look through. I mean, all they had was what they read in the newspaper or TV guide or something, and so they did skits. And that's how they filled time.
So you do kind of a mixture of both, don't you? You do both skits and facts.
I do. I don't like to be too fact heavy. I don't want to just come off as a guy standing up there spouting IMDb facts. I like to give a little bit, just enough to make it interesting, tell some of the interesting facts about the movie. But I like the skit based thing because that's what people tune in to see, more entertainment.
Now I understand you also had a band at one time.
Yeah, I did that for about 3 years. I think that was my midlife crisis. I think some people buy sports cars, have affairs. I had started a punk band.
And you were the lead singer, weren't you?
I was. It was called Spook Hand. Got the name because my son, and this is a true story, was woke up from a nightmare one night. We went in there, asked him, just, hey, it's okay. He said a spook hand was waving at him out of the closet.
Wow.
True story. A spook hand. I was like, wow, that's creepy as hell. I got to use that.
Did you make that into a song at least?
No, I should have. I should have done that.
Yeah. To me, I just like there's a spook hand waving in the closet. It's like
yeah.
Never
used that one.
I can hear kind of like almost like a 50s type of like beat to it,
Mm-hmm.
like a rockabilly thing going.
We've been good.
That. And you also appeared in a Dick Tracy comic strip.
I did. That was pretty cool. That had a horror host connection to it too. When I was writing for Scary Monsters magazines, I had found out about this host in the Memphis area, and I contacted the guy, found him, contacted him, interviewed him, and then about a year later, he said, "Hey, listen, I write Dick Tracy, and we'd like to put Dr. Gangrene in there as a thank you." So it's kind of like payback, for since you did this, I'll return the favor, and we'd like to put you in there. I beat Svengoolie into that one.
Yeah.
I think he really was kind of jealous of that one because he told me, he's like, man, dude, that's awesome. He wrote me, it's like, congratulations. And again, see, that's the perfect example of somebody that's happy for somebody else's success. he wrote me on and was like, "Hey, Larry, man, that's fantastic. I think that's, but I could tell, he was like, God, I'd love to do that." And then he got in there, and then he got into DC Comics, which
Yeah, I was probably say, he
better.
basically joined the Justice League,
Yeah, exactly. He's like, wow. So pretty cool.
So that was like a 5-part story, I believe.
Yeah, they did him up right.
That. And
Yeah.
so were you a little bit hurt that you didn't get to be the bad guy, in the Dick Tracy strip? You were just
No, I was so happy just to be involved. Yeah,
I did they'd have a cool name for the villain, Abner Cadaver. I did love that name.
I love that too. That's a good one.
Yeah. And so if a little kid came up to you and asked you, I want to be a horror movie host, what advice would you give them?
I've had a lot of people ask me for advice. I always say to think about what it is about those type shows that you like and do the type show you would watch. Don't worry about what's popular or what, oh, if I do this, people will like it. If I do this, it'll be popular. Don't worry about that. Just please yourself. Do the type show you'd watch, because then, if nothing else, you're going to be happy with the end product. And that's going to keep you going longer than if you try to ride some trend or do something that, you just think will be popular. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Worry about yourself. Don't get drawn into Facebook drama. There's a lot of that with some of these hosts. They start bickering amongst each other, and and it's that way with any niche. The more you drill down into a niche, whether it be ghost hunting or horror hosts or whatever it is, the more of that you get run into. Just stay out of all that and just have fun with it.
That sounds like good advice. And you talked about Betty Page earlier. Tell us about I guess the unveiling they had for her.
It was cool. They had at Hume Fogg. It was at Hume Fogg High School, which is where she went to high school in Nashville. Excuse me. There was probably 100 people out there, I would guess. There was a documentary film crew from the New York Times came to shoot the footage. 2 local TV stations were there. A guy came all the way from France to witness it. People came from all over, and some of her family members spoke at the dedication, and then they unveiled it, and it's this great marker that tells all about Betty. And it's just really cool to see the state of Tennessee do something this cool, especially right now when they're kind of leaning so far into the other direction. Everything's so conservative and shutting things down and banning books and all this kind of stuff. It's nice to see things kind of celebrated instead of torn down. And she was one that trendsetter, absolute icon. So it's nice to see her recognized.
And just for the sake of some of our Irons members, I'm not just like into a lot of this like horror and all that. So explain a little bit who she was.
She was a pinup, the most famous pinup model of all time, photographed probably more than any other model. She was the cheesecake model, kind of the girl next door. She went to high school at Hume Fogg, then went to Peabody College, right across the street from Vanderbilt, graduated from there, and then went into this career of being a model for a certain number of years before she eventually became a born-again Christian and didn't have anything to do with her past, and just sort of disappeared from the public eye. Had no idea really the amount of impact that she would have, but it's gone on to influence everything from car culture to fashion and especially in the female makeup and pinup and all that kind of thing. It's hairstyle. She's got that iconic Betty bangs. She was one of a kind.
Yeah, I imagine probably everybody's seen a picture of her, even though they may not know who she was.
I think so too. And in comic books, got like the Dave Stevens character in The Rocketeer was based on her. So, yeah.
If I understand correctly, Dave Stevens helped a lot to get her a lot of royalties, from her images being used.
I think that's correct. Yeah.
And they did a movie a few years back with Gretchen Mol called Notorious Betty Page, and they premiered it at the Bell Court in Nashville, and I went to go see that, and I was like sitting in the midst of her family completely by accident. And it was just weird, being in the middle of her family watching a movie about her and all of that stuff. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
kind of a very unique experience, to
for
see.
sure. It's pretty cool that they're still around, that, and like I said, they spoke at the dedication too, which was.
And was there some type of Betty Page contest you were a judge for?
Yeah, there was this. That's one of the more unique things that I've done as Dr. Gangrene. It's definitely more left field than off brand for the character. They did a pinup contest and had me. I wasn't a judge. I was the MC for it. So had me read facts about each contestant and then ask them a question like in a beauty pageant. So I was sort of the beauty pageant MC, and then they had judges that picked a pinup winner for the night.
That was awesome.
Pretty cool. It
Like
was
good enough for
actually
Betty
a lot of
Page.
fun.
All right, and usually we do like a word for the episode, and I wanted to pick one word that it popped up in your show. That's kind of an unusual word, aerobicide.
Robicide, yes.
Yeah,
That was one of my favorite episodes of Creature Feature that we got to show. It was perfect 80s schlocky. So I got to show some really good movies, and then I got to show some real just schlock, and that's on that side of things for sure. It's got aerobics. It's got a killer with a giant safety pin, murdering people with a giant safety pin, and it's completely ridiculous. And rock and roll music.
yeah, it was like that was definitely a very. I saw the trailer for it. I haven't seen the movie yet, but it looked like a very one of a kind movie, I have to say.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, I guess like when you're doing these movies, you said you do like film noir stuff like that. Uh, I guess like kind of like what we consider like good classic movies, and then like Aerobicide, which is like a really bad movie. Do you do your presentations different, like for a good one as opposed to a bad one?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I try to treat, not really. Yes and no. I mean, you feel like with the good ones, yeah, like if I were to host Frankenstein and Dracula, which hopefully I'll be able it every year, more movies fall into the public domain. If I keep doing this for about 4 more years, unless Universal pulls a fast one, which I don't put it past them to do, and changes the rules, somehow pays Congress to move the goalpost further down, I should be able to. Every host should be able to host those here pretty soon in about 4 years. When I think we're up to 1927 films are public domain now. If I were to host Frankenstein and Dracula, you feel so much reverence for those films. Like you don't want to make fun of them. You don't want to like, you want to. This is Boris Karloff. I mean, this is this Jack Pierce makeup. This is the biggie. But at the same time, I showed Ed Wood's Plan 9 from Outer Space, and I wrapped that episode up by going into a diatribe about how this is called the worst movie in the world, and it is far from the worst movie. That he deserves more respect than that. That he's a filmmaker with integrity. Maybe he lacked the maybe he lacked the talent. Maybe he lacked the budget to pull things off. But he had a vision, and he got this done. And by God, his movies are more entertaining than some of the big budget crap that you can go see in theaters today. I'd rather watch Plan 9 from Outer Space than a lot of the modern stuff. And I just went on this whole diatribe about how, and I've done that with several of the schlocky filmmakers lately. As a matter of fact, this season, I've made a point to show independent films. When I say independent films, non-Hollywood films, and to defend the filmmakers. Dwayne Esper, who made the movie Maniac, Ed Wood with Plan 9 from Outer Space, Ray Kellogg with John Gila Monster and Killer Shrews. So I've really kind of come to the defense of these B movie filmmakers, and the movies that they made, because it kind of makes me mad when people all they do want to do is crap on these movies. That, yeah, it's easy to sit back and just poke fun at them and make fun of them, but my hat's off to anybody that makes a feature film and actually gets it completed.
I understand that. I feel that way about like the director Birdemic. It's like he put a lot of time and effort into that thing, and he definitely believes in that movie and stuff like that. And I almost have more respect for that than I do oppose the Transformers movies.
Right. The movies with the giant budgets don't have any excuse to not turn out well. These guys have every excuse in the world, but succeed despite it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. All right. Anyway, thank you for coming on to our show and all that.
Well, thank you for having me on. This has been fun.
And all that. And David, do you want to talk about our merchandise we have?
Oh, we have a Teespring account for t-shirts and other merchandise. Mark here is actually modeling one of our t-shirts, and it's called Lovecraft Pod. That's my website, and not 30 minutes with hplovecraft.com, because I don't know who's going to remember that website that's like 6 feet long. It is available. I just checked.
You did. It's available.
$12.
$12.
Yeah.
Wow.
You should grab it now.
Wow. Grab it, do a redirect.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
But anyway, it's lovecraftpod.creatorspring.com, and you can just look us up there. And if you're interested, you can get what is it, doormats and
doormats, yes,
coffee mugs, just anything you want with our
urns.
awesome logo.
No, yeah.
Urns,
Yeah.
modestly priced
Yes,
receptacle.
yeah. Not urns yet. We don't have the urns, so don't go on there looking for urns. They're not on there.
Right.
All right. David and Richard, I see the stars along the right. We must cease all discussions until they align again next month. 30+ minutes with HP Lovecraft is sponsored by Chase's Garage, 1313 Skidmore Street, home of the senior mechanic and the giant Gila monster. This podcast was created in association with LovecraftPod.com and Logan Speculative Fiction Group, with the help of the Logan County Public Library and the Great Old Ones. Special thanks to Katie Tyson for being the Phantom of the Lovecraft Opry, and Joshua Dukes and Mandy for the Cybernarian. Until we meet again, may you avoid Princess Cthulhu because she has a case of the creeping cruds.
She does.